Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's design webinar, Countertop Chronicles, Unveiling Surface Secrets. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us as we continue our theme of surfaces and texture for the month of March. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers from Precision Stone, Denise Butchko, Trade Account Manager, and Gina Sarin, Principal and Owner. Denise, Gina, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Countertop Chronicles, Unveiling Surface Secrets. So we're going to dive right in the interest of time. I am Denise Butchko. I'm the NKBA Chicago chapter president and a very joy-filled, proud member of the team at Precision Stone Design. And Gina, who are you?
Hi there. Thank you for having me. My name is Gina Saran. I am one of the co-owners of Precision Stone Design, and we are a stone fabrication and installation company out here in Elk Grove Village, which I call the Mecca of Stone. Me and my partner started this business about 15 years ago. From my dining table, $3,000, 2 bottles of Jack, and put this 4-page website up, and which launched us in this bad world of stone fabrication. Since then, we've been very, very lucky to work with multiple homeowners and trade partners and do some really creative and interesting work around here in Chicagoland. My vision for the future is to continuing pushing the boundaries of creativity and while maintaining eco-friendly manufacturing practices.
Awesome. So I'm going to go through this beginning part of the presentation in a really fast, energized way, because then we're going to get to the meat, the substance of the presentation around the specifics of stone. But we like to frame it, and so that's what I'm going to do here first. So our intention about all of this is transparency. When I started in the stone industry about 6-7 years ago, I thought, oh, this is simple and very straightforward. And yet there's all kinds of murkiness beyond the water that comes off the saws. And so bringing more transparency and helping people understand and educate them about all the different aspects of stone is a really important part of the mission that both Gina and I have taken on. So what we'll cover today is you'll get insights into the trends before the trends, examine which elements increase cost, understand the processes and life cycle of a stone project, and then we'll spend some time on the evolving popularity and properties of porcelain, PPP. You can type in questions anytime. Alicia will be logging those, and then we'll answer them all at the end because we know people are on lunch hours or need to get through things. So the trends before the trends, this is really the information that I pull from talking to commercial design, which I realize almost all of you are focused on residential design, but there are elements of where the residential market tends to be blending. And I think taking in the bigger picture of what the Genslers and the SOMs of the Skidmore, Owings and Merrill of the world are doing and how that comes then into the home. So this is the only slide where I'll actually read something, but I think there's a driving message underneath it that I want you to get, which ties into our transparency. So while issues around the environment have been around for quite some time, it's really being explored and embedded on a deeper level right now. And we saw that all over KBIS. So it is about where the food that shapes the menu at the restaurants or in your kitchen or in your refrigerator or in your plunge tub is sourced. It's about how far those roses on the reception desk have traveled. It is not only about what that candle next to the bed is made from, but also who made it. So that is what is helping to drive the transparency. So we've started with trends from the built environment, beyond just colors and textures and stone, but these are elements that drive those colors, those textures that we see everywhere, and most importantly, the design. Think about how you're building community in where you physically live, where you physically work, what your market is, and digitally. How is all of that pulling in? Because it's super important to merge those. think about creating experiences for people. So just because you're hosting an open house doesn't mean people are going to make the effort to get up and come. They tend to like to sit on their couch with 3 different electronic devices all at the same time. So how are you going to get that motivation to get them to do what it is you're hoping they will do, whatever action you want them to take? Think about sensory experiences, which we are very fortunate to have in terms of we cook food, so we smell it, we touch it, we feel it, like that can all be brought in. And what is the emotion of that? Because it is those things that really bond your clients to you from wherever you're trying to capture them from. Be aware that you really cannot separate a digital experience from an emotional experience anymore. And that's just getting deep fakes and AI, and it's all just getting like, woo. So you really need to think in a very holistic way about how you're promoting your business and what surrounds it. Of course, we know wellness is a huge factor, and that continues to drive more and more on where the product's from, how it's made, how it affects the environment that people live in. I mentioned the residential, the idea that it's not just commercial and hospitality design, but residential. And these 2 pictures are because when you could just walk into a high-rise building in Chicago, now you have to have security clearance, you would see a lot of stone. We're not opposed to that. But some greenery, some silver, some leather, and that was it. And then if you flip to the photo on the right, it's actually a hotel lobby, the Palmer House here also in Chicago. And it's much more, I mean, that does not look like my living room, but it's more warm, it's more inviting. So as you notice, you're going to hotels, you're going to restaurants, think about how they're starting to feel more like your home. Big does not equal luxury. So we're not as much about the huge spaces as we are, how are we living really well in the space we do have? So this guy needs a bigger couch, but it's about the lifestyle of the product and not just the life cycle. So it's really both. How does this, and brands have been doing this forever. You want to wear your Calvin Klein jeans or whatever the case may be. So that is important to people. People will be asking you more questions about that. And what are the trends? You probably could guess all of these. Maximalism, layer, 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 give me more and more and more, give me shine, give me texture, give me detail, give me lots of pillows and all kinds of decorative items. Much more, seeing much, much more of that in every element in home decor. Maximalism is actually even a trend on Instagram. We're seeing very much a marble in darker colors being on the upswing. Dimensional and texture. I'm going to highlight this one product that we work with called Borrowed Earth. It's the Borrowed Earth Collaborative. The coolest textured dimensional tiles, bricks, and panels. So people can create amazing looks. We'd be happy to talk to you about that further, but it's really cutting edge, get it, haha, of stone on how the texture and the dimension and the lighting can come into play to really give a unique experience for the homeowner and the place that they live. This is more of the texture, so you can build them in tiles and do all kinds of things like that. Use flat stone, textured stone, like, who doesn't love this? We're seeing a lot of integrated sinks. Make sure if you're working with a fabricator that your engineering is up to snuff and will really do everything that the sink needs to do, besides look incredibly gorgeous. Hood surrounds out of stone. Believe me, we are not opposed to any of these ideas because we think of stone as such an incredible, beautiful aspect of the home. And so being able to put it in more places, we love doing that. The free power, the invisible cooktop, all over the place at KBIS, not just for charging phones, but actual cooking on it. So we do that with certain porcelains. It's becoming more and more popular. If you probably chime in, you probably have seen it. And there's very much a blurred line. And where I go with this is the architect the designer? Or is the designer the architect? Or is the architect the fashion house? Frank Gehry has a line of handbags, and hopefully you're familiar with Frank Gehry, who is just very contemporary. And so the idea that all of these worlds are merging, and you've seen this for a while probably as well, but it's very much everyone's crossing over into different elements. Soapstone's popular. We're seeing a lot of demand for that. Printed quartz, an option that if you're not familiar with it, it's worth a look. It's the quartz substrate with the look of porcelain, so it's much easier to cut, and it tends to come in at a more budget-friendly place. So printed quartz on the rise. And then going into the countertop process, important elements, I'm looking at my clock here, important elements when you're thinking about a project for you, not just the stone, but as it relates to the stone, the budget, the selections, the fabrication and install, and what the timelines are for all of that. So there's kind of standard, mid-range, and luxury that tends to break out the differences between these. So if you have a standard project, it's really a consistent pattern. A lot of times it is a quartz. What you see is what you get. So it's not like you have to look at all 10 slabs because Mother Nature created them each differently. Most of the time, the clients don't need to view that material. I always like them to, but that you guys decide how you want to do business. And then harmonize those simple standard projects do tend to harmonize with most cabinet, paint, and hardware colors. So here's an example of what we would consider a standard project. I mean, it's lovely, but it's not super complicated. On a mid-range, you're going to have more patterns on the stone slabs that are much more complex. That's why if you're looking at a quartz manufacturer, one might be priced significantly more than the other because of the ingredients as well as the patterns, what they need to do to make it. So your client should view it and see that, make sure they like it. During the process of selection, other material will probably capture their interest. So you need to control that as well. And then depending on what you want, if you have a heavily veined and you're trying to line up the veins, there could be more waste on that project, which then ends up costing more, typically, for most fabricators. We often sell by just the square foot needed, which is fantastic, but that is a thing to be aware of. Where maybe this is an example, you're not only trying to make sure that the veins line up from the horizontal counter to the vertical backsplash, but even on the island so that it all flows. And if that's the kind of attention to detail you're looking for, then just be aware that's going to require more material, more time. It can totally be done, looks way better, but it falls into a mid-range level. And on a luxury product or project, the stone slabs are more complex. They have more depth, more layers. You should definitely view the material. Most likely going to be a natural stone, but it's not always. But you want to make sure you know what's involved. Something that has a lot of different dimension and layers. And, if we added an integrated sink instead of the drop-in, that would be a much more complex, you've got 2 sinks going on here. So lots to think about, lots to work around. So now I am going to have Gina take over. Gina's going to be running through this material, sharing it with you. I'm going to try to guide and match up with moving the slides along with her. So thanks for your patience on that. And Gina, take it away.
Well, thank you, Denise. That was pretty interesting. We're now going to get into a little bit of a nitty-gritty, some hard numbers, some reasons why products are priced the way they are, and hopefully we'll be peeling off some layers of this mystery for you. We're looking at the next slide, which we have is, what role do fabricators play? I know you as designers, you all are extremely particular about every project, ensuring every detail is perfect, and matching up with the right fabricator is also critical to make your vision come alive. Not only is it just about cutting the stone, it is about understanding and respecting your design and being able to deliver it on a timely and budget-friendly manner. That's what a good fabricator would do. And here's, I want to say, 4 big key points I would recommend that you check before signing up with a fabricator. The first one would be attention to detail, what material expertise they have, what kind of project management teams which they have, the machinery and the tooling. Is it up to par with the requirements and the complexities you require? And finally, the creativity and customization ability which you're looking for, whether it's integrated sinks, mitered edges, etc. So just doing a quick check at the front end will save you a lot of trouble at the back end. Next. So Denise just spoke about the 3 different types of projects, the standard, mid-range, and luxury. Here, I'll just briefly touch upon as in what is the price point which you should be expecting between these ranges. Now, bear in mind, this goes across all material type, whether it's granite, quartz, quartzite, marble, and porcelain. So for a standard kind of a budget, which is more budget-friendly and practical, you're looking at about anywhere between $40 to $70 of an installed stone. There it is very much a basic stone. It is perfect for, I want to say, rental properties, quick remodels, entry-level homes, etc. In a mid-range budget, you're looking at anywhere between $70 to $100, $110 a square foot installed. There you're looking for a mid-patent quartz, something where the clients are looking for that higher level, a higher level of look, but not necessarily the luxurious look. And finally, going towards the luxury end, which is more like custom build and high-end residential, this is where the creativity comes in, and you're looking at much more customization, like we spoke about the integrated sinks, the miter edges, the waterfall sides, and a much more layered kind of an installed and multiple material types being used across different areas. There is a pretty much an elephant in the room we're talking, about, and everybody is kind of heard a little bit, or I want to say is aware of what silicosis situation is. So I'm going to briefly touch upon it as it pertains to our industry, and it would be great for you guys to have an insight on it as well. So what is silicosis? Silicosis is basically a lung disease which occurs when you inhale particles of silica, which is pretty much found in all kinds of stones which we fabricate. So you could say it quartz, quartzite, marble, granite, but we all have heard that it is pretty much the hoopla around, the noise around it is very much focusing on quartz countertop. But that is not the case that only quartz countertops have silica. Every single material type which we use has a certain level of crystalline silica, but then they obviously vary. There is a quick poll out there, or if you know what the silica content in any one of these is, and I mean the lowest level of silica content. And we can, discuss about this at the end of the presentation. How it impacts you and your clients is it pretty much silicosis occurs when from cutting and fabrication at the fabrication end. Once it's in a built environment, there is no danger of inhaling any silica particles. So as a designer, I think understanding that and choosing materials which are more silica, fabrication friendly, kind of give us all I want to say a much more balanced outlook and a more ethical consideration when we are working with natural stone. The other thing I think which you guys should also consider is if the fabricator has safe cutting practices. Some of them we all know should be wet cutting. So does your fabricator use dry cutting methods or wet cutting? Do they use CNC and water jets or no? Because all of that will add to the fact that they are collecting the water appropriately, the dust is taken care of. Do they do some kind of air monitoring around their fabrication area or not? Do they use the appropriate PPE for their people, fabricators, as well as maybe the clients who are walking in the warehouse or in the fabrication room? So all of this kind of gives you guys a little bit of an insight. However, there is one more thing also I will say is that all manufacturers, and I'm saying right now, quartz manufacturers are very much in the spotlight and are reformulating all their products and coming up with many different kinds of products saying, hey, ours is way much more in less in silica. So the threshold currently by OSHA is that it has to have 40% of silica content and lower for it to be, safe for fabrication and cutting and so on and so forth. However, at this point in time, quartz, which is very much, like I said, in limelight, is currently at sitting at 90 to 95%. So while the big movers and shakers of quartz industry is coming up with reformulation, etc., they, I would also say on the same coin that they already knew it when they introduced it about 10 years ago and pushed granite out of favor from all our minds. So yeah, we'll come back to that question, which is at the bottom of the slide at the end of this presentation. So now let's talk about a product which has caught the fancy of many, I want to say homeowners, designers. You can see it a lot on many design channels, and many clients and designers ask us, what is this porcelain and why is it gathering so much popularity? So the way I like to say is porcelain is basically these large format slabs which are created with immense heat and pressure, and it is pretty much how I like to call it, a superhero of a surface material. And the reason why I say that is that it is, if you were to take the pain points of marble and the pain points of quartz away, there is this beautiful product of porcelain which is born. So it gives you the look of marble without the maintenance. One of some of the key properties of porcelain is that it is, heat resistant, lightweight, non-porous, 100% cyclable, as well as UV resistant, so it doesn't change any fade, or it does not fade or change any color. So it allows itself to lend itself to multiple applications, both in interior and exterior spaces. So it then becomes a kind of, like I said, a little bit of a superhero of a surface at this point in time. What do these slabs kind of look like, and what are the sizes? Typically, porcelain, when we say porcelain, a large format tile comes to your mind, like 12 by 12, 12 by 24, 24 by 48. But these large format slabs are also known as sintered stones. They come in as large a format as 10 feet by 5 feet, which is very much like your quartz or natural stone out there in the market. What it does is, the biggest benefit is that it allows the full pattern to show and allows application of stone with minimal seams. So it then gives it a much more luxurious and a high-end look within the same product line. What are the few different thicknesses it comes in? Typically, once porcelain was introduced, I want to say, kind of started to gather steam around 7 to 8 years ago. And it started with 6 mm, which was a thinner, lightweight product, which was great for vertical applications. But then came soon enough a 12 mm format also followed suit. And that was much, I want to say, conducive for a countertop surface, for even flooring, walls, and that allowed us to kind of expand its applications. And lately, we are seeing even 2 cm and 3 cm of thicknesses of porcelain come through for a higher end applications, for those high traffic areas. And this also then allows us not to miter the stone or add any substrate, which then brings the level of the cost down. The porcelain comes out, of course, in multiple different finishes, starting from polished to satin to matte to textured and leathered, etc. But obviously, as you designers, you probably know that the polished is more like a dramatic and a more modern feel. If you wanted a more contemporary and an understated look, you would go for the matte or the satin feel. But if you wanted it to be applied in high traffic areas, then I would say, and or floors, I would say you would then use the textured or the honed finish. Next, thank you. So we then come to what is the composition of this porcelain slabs? Like I said earlier, it is all made of 100% recyclable material. This is one big, I will say, cool factor from if you're looking at any sustainable product. And companies which are manufacturing it are also claiming to be carbon neutral. So the four key ingredients which kind of create this beautiful product is you have the granite minerals and quartz and feldspar combined with a really tough kaolin clay. And then you have the natural pigmentation, which gives it this beautiful design. And the silica and the glass minerals are added on to give that addition and the strength for the porcelain. All of these materials are then combined together and then baked under 2500 degree Fahrenheit, ovens. And then it comes out baked and cooked pretty much like a flat slab. Once it comes out as a flat slab, it could be white, it could be gray, it could be taupe, or anything in between. Then the manufacturers actually apply a high resolution digital imprint to, let's say, mimic a Calcutta Makia marble, or is it Taj Mahal or Cristallo or whatever you might have. So the big difference between all manufacturers around, I will say there are multiple of them popping up these days, but all of them have, I want to say, their own technology to create these porcelain slabs, which has different level of tensile strength and different level of fabrication manuals which they release for us. So what it does for us is, as a fabricator, there is not one manual which say, okay, here's your do's and don'ts for porcelain fabrication, but every manufacturer is coming out with their own. So it is then left to fabricators like us to identify what is the best practice for us. And believe me, we started fabrication or started to work with porcelain fabrication, I want to say about 7-8 years ago. While nobody wanted to talk about it, I had seen it in the market. I had seen it at the trade shows, and I said, we got to go all in on it, and we must have broken at least, 50 to 60 slabs while during learning the process of mastering the art of fabrication. And to date, I will say that every time we are working or bidding or pricing in porcelain project, the challenges still have not gone 100%. I will not say that we're perfect and, we don't break porcelain slabs anymore. Absolutely not. We still, the level of, I want to say, issues and breakages 7 years ago, from a 50%, it has come down as low as about 10 to 15%. So I would say work with a fabricator who has some level of experience and within the porcelain world, because while it is a beautiful product, it is not for the faint of heart. Yeah, so porcelain slab, like I said, it's an advanced product after all of this formulation, and has high superior qualities and lends itself to both interior and exterior applications. So what are the key properties and benefits? Here I'm going to just walk through a few of them. The first one being that it is 100% non-porous, so you could actually cook on it, work on it, antibacterial, food safe, which is why, as Denise showed earlier, you could even use the induction cooktops for transmission of heat, etc. Yep. The next slide probably will show you that it is also stain and chemical resistant as well, because it is non-porous. All of this stuff, which is kind of which it sits on the surface rather than going inside the body of the stone. So it's pretty much an easy to clean, wipe and clean kind of a situation. I'll talk about the properties, the benefits right now, but I will also kind of put out a couple disclaimers at the end. So a few, as you can see, there are multiple properties of porcelain which lends itself to different applications, but there are 3 or 4 which I will highlight. And one of them are, like I said, it is extremely lightweight, resistant to high temperatures, so makes it a perfect product to be cladding around fireplaces. Also internally, even in external environments, you can put, make outdoor kitchens with it. But the one thing I will say is outdoor kitchens with single layer of porcelain, not the mitered layer, because I have it in my own backyard. When porcelain came in, I did the renovation about 5 years ago. I said, porcelain it is. That is my next go-to project. And I did mitered edges on my outdoor kitchen. Maybe I should have brought some pictures, but now after 5 years of intense, I want to say freezing temperatures, we're in Chicago, so the miters started to open up, and I'm not going to call my technician. I'm going to leave it as is because they're going to tell me we told you so. So again, sustainability from a sustainability aspect, it is a very desirable product, along with made with 100% recyclable material. So these are the benefits of porcelain. But I want to say the disclaimer of porcelain is, unlike any natural product, if a chip or anything which occurs in, let's say, natural stone, marble, or quartzite, our service technicians are pretty much skilled to actually be able to take care of it and make it look as good as new. I want to say 95%, if not 100%. But in porcelain, the challenges of fixing a chip is it is a much more harder process, and not many fabricators or installers do know how to take care of it. Admittedly, the biggest challenge or of fabricate is at the fabrication level of porcelain. The biggest stress we put on the product is when we are running it through our machines, when we are transporting it to you, and once we're doing the cutouts for the cooktops, the faucets, etc. That's when the maximum of the chip occurs. But bear in mind, it is still in the fabricator's possession. It is still our possession. It is still our responsibility to give you a flawless product. However, once it actually goes in a built environment, if life happens, and which it will, chips will occur because no product is indestructible. So if it does occur, the chances of repair of those chips are, like I said, they are, I want to say, not as high as 95% look good factor, but it would be, about 70 to 75% look good factor. So that's, I want you to understand that as well, while understanding the beautiful properties of porcelain. Care and maintenance, as it is a non-porous product, it is extremely easy to take care of. No harsh or bleach products do we recommend on it, but other than that, it's pretty much a wipe and clean situation. A quick comparison, this is what I call my cheat sheet, and I kind of share it with my team members. It is a bit technical here, but all it is saying is that compared to granite, marble, quartz, and any other surface, in its performance, in durability, in its stain resistance, in its heat resistance, porcelain literally comes out at a much higher and much, I want to say, durable level. We look at some applications, as in where all it could be used. And as I've mentioned here, it has both interior, exterior applications, even outdoor facades. And as Denise will keep scrolling in the next few slides, you will see multiple different applications, both residential and commercial. We've seen, porcelain come up in high traffic areas like airports, like United Terminals, as you can see in Chicago. They went with porcelain, I think, 5-6 years ago, because of the nice seamless look we're talking about. But here, there's an application you're seeing on an outdoor facade building, and this is for another, high-level brand, which we probably all know is called Neolet. We're going to also now take you behind the scenes on porcelain fabrication. I did say that the most challenging part of working with porcelain is at our end, is at the fabrication end. And I will just kind of highlight the few different reasons why, and then which once you understand that, you will realize what are the biggest cost drivers of porcelain. So if I were to at this point give you a quick example of how porcelain price point compares that of, let's say, a quartzite or a quartz. So if I had to say, a mid-level quartz would be, I would say, about $60 to $80 a square foot installed. An entry-level quartzite, you're looking at about $90 to $110 a square foot installed. Not 110 is not the cap. Quartzites can go really higher, good from 90 to maybe 250, 300. But an entry-level porcelain in our market, and it could be different for other markets, but we as fabricators, we charge about anywhere between $100 to $130 a square foot. Now, you might say, why, if it is such a great product, price point of the product itself is not that high. What I mean is, okay, I think I'm jumping ahead in terms of so let me talk about a little bit about the material handling of porcelain. This is the behind the scenes fabrication end of it. The material handling is is also very special. We got to make sure that it is always porcelain does not have any flex. Granite and quartz has a little bit of a flex within the slabs, so they are not as fragile or as delicate in transportation. Porcelain is very much like glass, which has minimal flex. So transporting it, handling it, and fabricating it pretty much requires extra care. Also, because porcelain, it has this minimal flex in it. There are some fabrication recommendations. That's my cat, by the way, who did something at the back end. Fabrication do's and don'ts, and which translates into, I want to say, design considerations as well. I will highlight here is that overhangs. The very first one I will talk about is overhangs. As you know, in granite, quartz, and quartzites, we can go as much as 11 to 12 inches without any support for the overhangs. However, in porcelain, the maximum unsupported overhang is only 6 inches. There is a requirement of we as fabricators should not be doing 100% 90-degree corners. There should always be a relief of maybe an eighth or maybe a 16th of an inch to give it that, so for it to release that tension. Again, the setbacks from the sinks, etc., and between cutouts are also larger versus compared to quartz and quartzite. So as fabricators, we have to ensure that our people, our teams are well versed with it. And when they are fabricating porcelain, we're also taking these big key points into consideration. The other big one is, I want to say, is the tools itself. Our blades, which we use in fabrication, they are not necessarily the same blades which we use for quartz or granite. In the next slide, I will be talking about what are the biggest cost drivers of porcelain. The first row is, I think, maybe a little bit of an eye-opener for some of you. If you will see a granite or a quartz slab, typically takes about 30 to 45 minutes of cutting time on our machines, whether it's a water jet, whether it's a regular saw. It should take anywhere between that with, or let's say, a standard kitchen. However, a quartzite can take anywhere between 1.5 to even up to 3 hours, depending on how strong it is and how dense it is. So for example, Cristallo, as you may have heard, it's a really popular material. Taj Mahal quartzite, as cutting any slab of that kind, a harder material, you're looking at anywhere between 2 to 3 hours for one slab. So if you have a 3 or 4 slab job, one of our machines is tied up for the entire day. Compare that to porcelain. Porcelain at this point in time has come down to 3 to 4 hours of just cutting time on our machines. So imagine if we were to do a shower surround, which requires 10 slabs, we're looking at about 40 hours of machine time for one single project. So that is one of our biggest cost drivers. The other one is the tool cost. Like I mentioned before, the blades which we use are not the same as any other. So there is a setup time, removal time, setup time of those blades. And then, of course, the life of those blades is also shorter because porcelain is so dense and it has so much intense heat and pressure built into it. And our machines have to run at a slower RPM, especially at the entry and exit points. Typically, there have been time, and it is extremely frustrating that you do a 5 slab job and you're literally at the tail end, and just as your blade is exiting the slab, it kind of tends to snap. And guess what? We're back to square one, trying to hustle and find that extra slab. So we as fabricators, from a pricing perspective, we do build in extra slab or two, depending on the scope of the project or the size of the project. Another key cost driver is the fabrication time. As you know, these are 12 material, thick material. We have to attach substrates to it, and every manufacturer has a different recommendation. So whether do we attach a styrofoam or a Durarock, or what are the distances or tolerances we have to work with are different by different manufacturers. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. And finally, our teams. Not every team which we have is trained or understands the product porcelain. So we specialize and train our top 1 or 2 teams so as to keep the issues and projects more specialized, and ensure that our clients get a the a great delivery the first time round itself. And I think that brings us to our last slide, as in what is the future of porcelain slab segment. So far, as you can see on the graph on the right, it is only on up and up. Overall, the growth for the whole category, you're looking at about 7.5% year on year. The big question in everybody's mind is, will it take away the business from natural stone, quartz, etc.? In my opinion, unless the 3 hurdles are taken care of, which is getting proper tooling or improvisation in tooling from the tool manufacturers, improvisation in the material that the snapping and breaking does not happen, and expertise at the fabrication end. As long as these 3 key hurdles are not taken care of, that explosion of porcelain would not happen. But porcelain has found its niche around in different application, especially vertical, outside, high traffic areas. But I personally don't see it replacing any natural stone or quartz completely, but it will take a piece of the pie. And I will give it now you over to Denise.
Okay, which I think that this is just us again, which please, we're Precision has a LinkedIn page. I do a lot of things on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. Connect with us anywhere that you want. And big part of my role is actual outside sales. And so I just think that this is funny. It was in a designer's parking lot, and I took a picture of it because it's just a nice little easy slide to end on. But Alicia, how do you want us? I know I saw chat things coming through. Are you going to read the questions, or how would you like us to proceed?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and read those questions for you. First, I want to thank you both for your presentation. It was wonderful. But we do have a few questions, so we can go ahead and dive right in. The first question is, how do you repair a chip in porcelain countertops?
I can take care of that. So it's pretty much, we just take the usual clay, and if the client has a chip which is actually fallen out and they have that in their possession, we would take that. That would be the starting point. And with clay and a colored epoxy is where we would try and color match it to the base porcelain as such. It is a
Amazing.
very, I want to say, specialized process, and our people are trained by different manufacturers. But like I said, whether a scratch or a chip or anything occurs, the the surface porcelain is not very friendly for us to give it a flawless look versus a natural product.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight.
Mhm.
Someone asked, can this material be used with induction cooktops? Does it retain the heat?
So, absolutely, this is actually many manufacturers are being, I want to say, certified by induction cooktop manufacturing companies. They are doing all the testing, and yes, it can be used with induction cooktops. And if you ever are in our area, we'd love to show you a demonstration in our showroom. So the heat does get the heat is within the magnetic coils of the induction. It does get transferred into porcelain, but not so much that you cannot touch it. If you will see any of the videos around from KBIS or any other demonstrations, you will see that you can actually lift up the pan and touch the surface of porcelain without burning yourself. So there is a minimal amount of heat transfer into the surface itself, but the actual the pot on which you're cooking or boiling or whatever you are will get the appropriate amount of heat.
Amazing. Someone asked, is through body porcelain available? If not, what is the likelihood of this being developed?
So, like you, we've been all waiting for a true body porcelain, and manufacturers, of course, are trying. In my opinion, there will never be a true body. What there will be a version of true body, and let me explain what I mean by that. If you will see, let's say, the print on top, let's say it's a Calcutta print. What it does do is instead of putting a flat base, like a solid cream flat base of porcelain, what they do is they will induce some level of speckling within the base itself and give it some natural color so that it resembles the pattern on the top and kind of gives you the illusion of being a true body. But will the veins ever translate all the way down into the stone, into the full thickness of the stone? Not with the printed technology, unless I'm wrong and AI brings something else and blows our minds away.
Never say never.
Yeah, never say
Um,
Right.
never.
our next question is, do you have any suggestions on getting our fabricators to embrace porcelain and be willing to learn how to work with it effectively?
Um, That's a good question. It actually depends on the mindset of the management. Like I said, um, there's a lot of hype around porcelain, yes, but there's a lot of negative press around porcelain also. As you may have, one should you scour the internet, there's a lot of misinformation. So me as an owner, I bought into it because I always like to try new things. We like to be at the forefront of any new technology, any new surface, because we don't want any of our clients coming and say or catching us off guard. So we've invested the last 5, 6 years in training, and all manufacturers, I will say, offer ample amount of training for fabricators. Do we have to set up we have to set up like a half day for our machine time, or even our fabricators or cutters or etc. Will then have to take part in that. So there is a lot of commitment in terms of intention, time, as well as some level of costs as well, because while they will give you one slab to test and try, but when you're doing your application for, let's say, a project which involves 4 or 5 slabs, I can guarantee you will if the first timers will break slabs. So you have to build your level of experience, and it is, I want to say, a long term vision, which an owner or a management of the company has to take, versus saying, hey, I need to make money on every single project which we have.
Right. So definitely making sure that you're talking to your fabricators and seeing that vision if that's something that they're interested in.
Yep.
Someone asked, have you ever tried to mix natural stone with other materials, quartz or porcelain? If so, what are the challenges?
So I'm assuming you're asking in different applications. So yeah, we've done that multiple times. Within our own office environment, we have our front reception desk, which is actually a mix of semi-precious stone, quartz, and a natural material. Um, they all can live together in interior environments. Can they live harmoniously in exterior environments? I would say maybe then that's when we should consider using one material at a time. But I have seen multiple products, material types being used by designers in residential homes. Quartzites is very much in favor, as you can see, but not everybody can afford a quartzite. So there are many times we recommend to a client, a mid-level client, is when we will say, hey, why don't you choose a really dramatic or a high-end quartzite for your island and keep the perimeter neutral and go for a maybe a solid or something minimal patterned quartz on it. So, and there is no, I want to say there is no downside to it, as long as you educate the client in terms of usage and its care and maintenance.
Amazing. Another question is, what can be done to camouflage the solid edge of porcelain around the undercount sink?
Undermount sink, yeah. So, um, if you want the true answer, not a whole lot. The reason why I say it is that the one way to camouflage the solid look on the sink cutouts is doing miters. However, doing miters would mean that you would, uh, we cannot we cannot give that relief cut I was talking about before, that eighth of an inch corner relief cut on the inside corners of the sink cutouts. So, while some men fabricators, and we've seen it in the market, will say, hey, we'll do a miter, sink cutouts around, that is not necessarily a long-term solution, because over a period of time, that 90-degree corner is a pressure point, and should something knock over a heavy crock pot or something, a crack will appear. So to answer your question, I want to say nothing at this point.
No, that's really important insight. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
Um, our final question is on the client side, how do you overcome objections in the sales process of using porcelain? Lots of concerns in the Midwest with durability.
That is true. We kind of, we first understand what they are, what the project is and how they're going to use that space. And based on, of course, how they are using that space is when we will lead them towards porcelain. The biggest challenge we find, of course, it's an easy transition to a fireplace application because it's lightweight, it's heat resistant, yeah, and people love it for the marble look of it. However, the biggest challenge I see in porcelain is there are two of them. One is the price point. Two is the chips or any issues which might appear over a long period of time. So we let the client. We obviously put the I want to say the benefits and the issues up front. We discuss it with the client, and we eventually let them decide rather than us kind of forcing them one way or another. We will shortlist one or two material types for them, and then eventually let the designer or the homeowner decide whether this fits their lifestyle and usage as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree. I think transparency up front is probably the best policy in letting them decide what works best for themselves and their lifestyle.
True.
Before we end today, I want to give you both the chance to give our audience any final thoughts. Can be based off the presentation, the questions, just anything you'd like to share with our audience.
I would say that I believe the stone should be the first thing prior to the color of the cabinets, particularly if you're doing a natural stone, because what Mother Nature creates, we can make cabinets cabinets can be made, stain, paint, whatever to match that. But when you pick the cabinets first and then you go look in stone yards, you might be spending a long time trying to match those two. Whereas if you fall in love with the stone, fall in love with the stone and buy it because it may not be there tomorrow, especially with the natural stone. So that's super important. And in terms of education for anyone in the audience who is active in an NKBA chapter, I am part of the chapter presentation program, and those are super fun for me to do and come out and talk about different topics. So on behalf of the national organization, we're encouraging people to make sure they know about the chapter presentation program and to engage with it, because it's a great benefit for every chapter. But I have gone from working in closets and millwork to, just being a total lover of stone and advocate for, in particular, as many natural materials as possible. So that is what I want to toss in at the end. Gina?
My only my 2 cents to this would be, I just want to share a new product line which is kind of catching our fancy, and we're seeing a lot of traction to it. Is basically the printed quartz. That is bringing together, like Denise said earlier, is the beauty of marble and at a much more affordable pricing. The format is the same. They are using a standard flat template like porcelain, and again doing an imprint of any beautiful natural material on it. So it kind of allows the usage of that material in not only just high-end projects, but in mid to low-end projects as well. And of course, we'd appreciate your support on Facebook, Instagram. Go ahead and connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you're ever in Chicagoland area, come say hi to us. We have a great cappuccino machine, and we'd love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you.
Amazing. I might take you up on that.
Yeah, fantastic.
To your point, Gina, there was somebody that asked about trying to get fabricators to work more with porcelain. The printed quartz, make sure, have a conversation with them about that, because it can get you that look of porcelain,
Yes.
but it still can be cut much, because it is a quartz substrate. So that could be sort of you might be able to get them to move that far, which then could get you what you're trying to go for in the look of the finished product.
Amazing. Well, thank you again to our presenters for sharing their insights, and thank you to our audience for joining. Until next time, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.